Hello, welcome to this video tutorial. My name's Mrs. Cook. I am an A-level sociology teacher and examiner for AQA. I thought I would hop on today to show you a 6 out of 6 answer to a cultural and material deprivation question. This was the answer offered by one of my A-star students. It's a question that I came up with, so it isn't a past question. And basically, I thought I would share it with you today because it follows the PEE structure and it gets 6 out of 6. So a 6 marker comes up in paper 1 on education, but also on paper 3 with crime. So the question I've come up with is an education-based question. So it's outlined 3 policies that aim to combat cultural deprivation and or material deprivation. So it's an education-based question. In order to understand how to write it, we do need to look at the mark scheme. So the marks are going to come from 2 marks for each appropriate policy that is clearly been outlined, or 1 mark if each policy is partially outlined. So in order to encourage my students to ensure that they are clearly outlining a policy, I try to get them to follow the PEE structure. Make a point, explain that point with an example, but keep it brief. So I always tell my students, you shouldn't really be spending more than 3 sentences per idea that you're putting across. So let's get into the answer. So when you're faced with a question in an exam situation, my bit of advice that I always give my students is to take your time, read the question twice, and make sure that you highlight the key command words. So the first key word in this question is outline. So outline is your cue to make a point, explain it briefly with an example. And I've highlighted the word 3 because if you don't put 3 across, whatever they ask for, you cannot obviously get the 6 out of 6. But also, if you put 3 ideas down that are too similar, then you risk losing out marks. So I always underline that to remind me that I've got to pick 3 very different ideas when I'm answering this question. I've highlighted the word policies, so I know I have to name policies. I can't be very general or vague. I have to name a policy, so a law or a government initiative that has been brought out. And it says that aims to combat cultural material deprivation. So the word combat is important because the word combat means to stop, to fight, or to pause the influence of something, to fight something. And it's cultural and material deprivation, either or. So I know cultural deprivation relates to home life. So intellectual stimulation at home could be to do with parental attitudes, could be about language. And I know that material deprivation talks about backgrounds where poverty is an issue. So overall, this question is asking for 3 policies that the government have brought out to try to stop and limit the impact of cultural or material deprivation. So we're really talking about working class families and households. So my first point is free school meals. Now, I've explained it very briefly using one example. So the government allow children who are from backgrounds of low-income families access to free nutritious meals at school, reducing the effects of poverty like hunger on concentration and attainment. So as you can see, I've made the point being the policy of free school meals, and I've briefly explained with an example of how it fights, combats, stops material deprivation, people who cannot afford to feed their children every single day. My next one, I'm not going to talk about food. I'm going to talk about something completely different. So this is an example of extra funding that a school might get for poorer kids. So I put down pupil premium. So that's the policy. That's what the government have brought out, pupil premium. And I've explained very briefly that the coalition gave additional funding to schools for each child from a disadvantaged background based on eligibility for free school meals. This budget could be used to pay for revision guides, subsidised trips. in order to reduce the effects of not being able to afford to go and missing out on potential educational help for the exams. So no more than 3 sentences, completely different to the first point I've made, and a good example of fighting against poverty or material deprivation. So I've done 2 on material deprivation, so I thought the third one, we'd have a look at culture deprivation, and that's what the student did as well. So aim higher. Aim Higher was designed to widen participation in higher education, particularly among students from disadvantaged backgrounds who are less likely to apply to university. Give an example of how it's helped. This overcomes any lack of parental encouragement or awareness of university by offering students university campus visits, residentials, and summer schools. So this student has done really well. They've done 2 material, 1 cultural deprivation. They've stuck to the rule of 3 sentences, no more. It's very detailed, but it follows the PEE structure, and they are sticking to the 3 sentences, which ultimately means that they haven't gone ridiculously overboard with the detail. And that gets them 6 out of 6. I hope this has been helpful. Follow for more videos. I'm going to be doing some more as we go through the year, and good luck.